Paddy Padmanathan, the CEO and president of Acwa Power, the largest privatized and electric company in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, owning about 30%, right, of the power energy in the kingdom. What is the significance of President Trump making his first international trip to the kingdom?
Extremely important from my perspective, from the kingdom's perspective, clearly. One of the things that Saudi Arabia is going to need as it embarks on this journey, it's not a single destination, but it's a journey of transforming its economy, participating in the world in a new way. The Vision 2030 objective and the National Transformation Plan is going to need a lot of technology, a lot of good practice, a lot of partnerships, and a lot of money. So, and quite frankly, United States, in the context of the world, represents a significant pool of knowledge, capital, technology, know-how, disproportionate to the size of the U.S. population, if you like. So ultimately, I see us attracting a lot of input from around the world, but absolutely clearly it's going to be, we're going to have to rely on a disproportionate amount from the United States. So the visit is extremely important because even though there's been 8 years of relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States, like in all relationships, we've gone through good times and bad times, rocky times. We're coming out of a very difficult period. Well, we are, some would say, still in a very difficult period of that relationship.
Because of the previous administration or because of the election?
I think it's, no, nothing to do with the election. I think it's to do with the previous era. I don't necessarily want to pin it to the previous administration. You know, so Islamic terrorism, the economic sort of slowdown around the world, very many things that all has impacted the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States in the recent times over the last 3 or 4, 5 years. So what clearly is needed now, even though there's a lot of U.S. capital here already,
right,
there's a lot of relationships, there's a lot of investments, so there's a lot of knowledge in the investor community, the fund managers. The fact of the matter is, we're going to need a lot more as we go forward, and money absolutely wants confidence, and one of the foundations of confidence is confidence with the political alignment, confidence about social, cultural ties, and some of this started to get eroded over the last, I don't know, 5, 7 years. So it's very important now that that is a reset and the right messages given so that American investor base, American supplier base, knowledge transfer base can confidently carry on, not come again, but carry on consolidating and growing.
I want to ask you about the political and the cultural reset, as you said, so to speak, and working together on that. Politically, when you look at the Trump administration, do you feel that they will be able to have that type of reset, especially when during the campaign there was such bruising rhetoric that was criticized not only by counterparts around the world, but also by many in the United States?
Okay, look, at the end of the day, actions speak louder than words. Point number one. Point number two, I think everybody knows that, you know, what you do, very sorry, I'm not trying to be cynical about this, what you do in order to get somewhere is not necessarily what you do when you've got there and you're faced with the opportunities, the challenges, the realities.
He could govern differently than he campaigned.
Well, yes, that's, you know, in simple terms, that's a way to put it.
Is that your hope?
No, I think it's not just my hope. I think that's what will happen. Yes, of course, it's my hope, but I'm very confident and convinced that that's what will happen, because that's the reality. I mean, you know, it's not just happening now. It's not just with this president, but look at every president. I mean, you know, and not just in the United States, in any country. You know, the democratic process sort of generates a certain behavior and responses. So it doesn't really matter. But the point is, from going forward, and you see the action. Look at the action. The first country that he chooses to come to. You know, he's been in office for 100 and something days. Mm-hmm. He has been receiving a lot of people. He's a guy who has been inside the United States traveling a lot. It would have been easy for him to jump into a plane and go anywhere.
Yeah.
But, okay, he has chosen to come to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia first. And I think it is a very significant, very important statement, not only for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but also to reset the relationship with the Islamic world. Okay, because you've got the very blunt leader of the free world meeting the leader of the Islamic world, the custodian of the two holy mosques, the holder of the faith. So very, very important to say, look, I think, we need to respect and recognize, and we need to build on and go forward. So,
and just last question in terms of the vision for 2030, culturally, we talked about business, we talked about politics, but lastly on culture, will Saudi Arabia as a kingdom look differently, be more inclusive toward women? Obviously, there have been some improvements, but not enough. You would agree? I mean, will it look different in 2030?
Absolutely agree. I agree with the statement that we've got a long way to go. I have been here 14 years. I've had the privilege of being in the kingdom 14 years now. Man, it's a completely different place. And the rate at which it's changing from where it is at to where it needs to be, to outsiders, it looks like it's still way too slow. I'm from the private sector, so by nature, I'm impatient. Okay, so I want things to happen much faster. I agree, but look, societal changes need to take its time and will take its time. Certainly here, the transformation is phenomenal. Even had you been in this conference, a conference like this, just 2 years ago, the number of women participation and the nature of their participation would have been something very different. I have the privilege of leading a Saudi company. The number of women employees we now have, we are able to have, fantastic. We need to go a long way, no question. You now have the head of the stock exchange is a lady. These are not symbolic. These are real. They didn't kind of appoint her just because she is a female. She's very capable. The head of one of the big banks is a lady. The head of the Economic Council, Economic Policy Unit, just I think in the last few days, ended up being a lady. So many of them now starting to come through. There has been, Lubna Olayan is the most visible example. Mm-hmm. In the private sector, there has been leading females. But I'm not going to whitewash this. Of course, it was nothing compared to where we need to get to. But everything is moving in the right way. But that change has to happen, not just because you and I say it needs to happen, or just because that's the way the world behaves, the rest of the world. No, it's got to happen in a way that respects the societal demands, accommodates the culture, and moves at the pace at which it can be absorbed.
Mr. Padmanathan, the CEO and president of Acwa Power, the largest privatized power privately owned power company in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I really enjoyed this interview. Thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Delighted.